This is a story most people do not know. It is recorded in the book of Judges, chapter 11. It involves a man who was rejected, a desperate nation, and a decision that would cost more than anyone could imagine. But before we get to what happened at the end, we need to understand how it all began. With a man named Jephthah. Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior. That is how Scripture introduces him in Judges 11 verse 1. A mighty warrior. But the same verse adds something else. He was the son of a prostitute. His father was Gilead. His mother was not. In ancient Israel, this mattered. Family lineage determined everything. Your inheritance, your place in society, your future. If you were born outside of legitimate marriage, you had no legal claim to any of it. Gilead had other sons born to his wife. These were legitimate heirs who would inherit their father's land and name. Jephthah grew up in the same household, but he was different. He was the son of a prostitute. The text does not hide this fact or soften it. It states it directly. When Gilead's wife's sons grew up, they took action. Judges 11 verse 2 records what they said to Jephthah. You shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. They drove him out. Jephthah fled from his brothers. He had nowhere to go in Gilead. No one would take him in. So he left and went to the land of Tob. Tob was frontier territory, a place where men went when they had no other options. Judges 11 verse 3 tells us what happened there. Worthless fellows collected around Jephthah and went out with him. The Hebrew word means empty men. Raiders who lived by their skill in fighting because they had no land and no family. These men recognized something in Jephthah. He was a mighty warrior, and he could lead them. Jephthah became the head of this group. They raided together. They survived together. He learned how to command men in battle and how to make hard decisions quickly. He built a reputation far from home as a skilled and dangerous fighter. While Jephthah was in Tob, trouble was building back in Gilead. The Ammonites were preparing for war. The Ammonites were descendants of Lot, related to Israel but hostile. They lived east of the Jordan River, and they wanted land. Israelite land. The territory of Gilead, specifically. Judges 10 verse 8 records that the Ammonites oppressed the people of Israel for 18 years. The people of Gilead tried to resist, but they had no strong military leader. They needed someone who knew war. The Ammonites crossed the Jordan and encamped in Gilead. The elders of Gilead gathered and asked themselves a question recorded in Judges 10 verse 18. Who is the man who will begin to fight against the Ammonites? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. They were desperate enough to offer total authority to whoever would lead them. Not just command during the battle, but permanent leadership over the entire region. But who could they ask? Then someone mentioned the name they had all been avoiding. Jephthah. Jephthah was the only man they knew who had the military experience they needed. He led a band of fighters in Tob. He was a proven warrior, but he was also the man they had driven out years earlier. The son of the prostitute. The one they said would never have an inheritance among them. Now they needed him. So the elders of Gilead sent messengers to the land of Tob. Judges 11 verse 6 records their request. Come and be our leader, that we may fight against the Ammonites. When the delegation arrived, Jephthah did not immediately agree. The situation was clear. These were the same people who had watched him be rejected and done nothing. So he asked them a direct question recorded in Judges 11 verse 7. Did you not hate me and drive me from my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress? He wanted them to admit what they had done, to say it out loud. The elders did not deny it. Judges 11 verse 8 records their response. That is why we have turned to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the Ammonites and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." They admitted they needed him. They offered him the position of head over all of Gilead. Permanently, the outcast would become the ruler. But Jephthah wanted to make absolutely sure they understood the terms. Judges 11 verse 9 records his condition. "If you bring me home again to fight against the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them over to me, I will be your head." Not maybe. Not after they discussed it further. He would be head. He wanted their commitment in advance, and they gave it. Judges 11 verse 10. The elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord will be witness between us, if we do not do as you say." They invoked the name of the Lord. They made it a sacred oath, witnessed by God himself. So Jephthah went with them. The man who had been driven out in disgrace returned as commander. The son of a prostitute now had authority over the very people who had rejected him. The people made him head and commander over them. Judges 11 verse 11 adds a significant detail. Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord at Mizpah. Mizpah was a place of worship. By speaking his words before the Lord there, Jephthah was making this covenant not just with the elders, but in the presence of God. This was a sacred commitment. He was acknowledging that his authority came from the Lord, not just from desperate men. The rejected son had become the head. The outcast had become the commander. But the Ammonites were still camped in Gilead. The battle had not been fought. And what Jephthah would do next, the vow he would make and the price that would be paid, was still ahead. The story was just beginning. And waiting at home, unaware of what was coming, was someone who would change everything. Jephthah had returned to Gilead as commander, but he did not immediately attack the Ammonites. Before he led his army into battle, he tried diplomacy. He was not just a fighter. He understood history. He understood the law, and he was willing to seek peace before war. The book of Judges records what happened next. Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites. Judges 11 verse 12 records his question. "What do you have against me, that you have come to fight against my land?" This was a direct challenge. Why are you here? What is your claim? The king of the Ammonites sent back an answer. "When Israel came up from Egypt, they took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peaceably." The Ammonite king was claiming that Israel had stolen this land 300 years earlier when they came out of Egypt. He wanted it back. Jephthah sent messengers again with a detailed response. What follows in Judges 11 verses 15 through 27 is one of the longest diplomatic speeches recorded in the book of Judges. Jephthah laid out the facts. Israel did not take land from Moab or from Ammon. They asked permission to pass through peacefully. They were refused. They went around. When the Amorite king Sihon refused passage and attacked Israel, God gave Israel victory and they took his land. That land had belonged to the Amorites, not to the Ammonites. Jephthah pressed his argument. For 300 years, Israel has lived in these cities. Why did you not try to take them back during all that time? The claim made no sense. Then Jephthah made his final statement recorded in Judges 11 verse 27. "I therefore have not sinned against you, and you do me wrong by making war on me. The Lord, the judge, decide today between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon." Jephthah was appealing to God himself as the judge. Let the battle decide who is right. The king of the Ammonites did not listen to the message. Judges 11 verse 28 states this directly. He refused negotiations. War was inevitable. And then something happened that changed everything. Judges 11 verse 29. Then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah. The Spirit of the Lord came on him. This was not a feeling. This was not emotion. In the book of Judges, when the Spirit of the Lord came upon someone, it meant God was empowering them for a specific task. It happened to Gideon before he led Israel against the Midianites. It happened to Samson before his great acts of strength. Now it happened to Jephthah. Jephthah passed through Gilead and Manasseh, gathering his forces. He passed through Mizpah of Gilead, the place where he had made his covenant with the elders. Then he crossed over to face the Ammonites. And at this moment, before the battle, Jephthah made a vow. Judges 11 verse 30 records it exactly. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering." This was a vow, not a prayer, not a request, a vow. In ancient Israel, a vow was a solemn promise made to God. Once spoken, it could not be broken. Deuteronomy 23 verse 21 says, "When you make a vow to the Lord your God, you shall not delay fulfilling it, for the Lord your God will surely require it of you, and you will be guilty of sin." Numbers 30 verse 2 says, "If a man vows a vow to the Lord, or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth." And then Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them. Judges 11 verse 32, "And the Lord gave them into his hand." The battle was decisive. Judges 11 verse 33 describes it. He struck them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, and as far as Abel-Keramim, with a great blow. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. 20 cities captured. A great blow. Total victory. The threat that had oppressed Gilead for 18 years was broken. Now Jephthah was returning home. He was returning to Mizpah, to his house. The battle was over. The victory was complete. He was coming home in peace, exactly as his vow had said. "When I return in peace from the Ammonites." But waiting at home was the price of that peace, the cost of that vow. And Jephthah did not know it yet. Jephthah came to Mizpah, to his house. Judges 11 verse 34 records what happened next. "And behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines and with dances." She was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. In ancient Israel, when a warrior returned victorious from battle, it was customary for the women to come out and celebrate. They would play tambourines. They would dance. This had happened when David defeated Goliath. And Jephthah's daughter was following that tradition. She came out with tambourines and with dances. She was celebrating her father's victory. Scripture never gives us her name. And as soon as Jephthah saw her, everything changed. Judges 11 verse 35. As soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, "Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you have become the cause of great trouble to me. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow." He tore his clothes. In ancient Israel, tearing your clothes was a sign of extreme grief, as when Jacob mourned Joseph or David mourned Saul and Jonathan. It was an expression of unbearable pain. And Jephthah tore his clothes when he saw his daughter, his only child, the one who had come out to celebrate his victory. She had become the fulfillment of his vow. Alas, my daughter. The Hebrew word translated alas is a cry of anguish. You have brought me very low, not you have done something wrong. You have brought me very low. He was acknowledging what had happened. His vow had trapped him. and she was the one who would pay the price. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow. And now we come to the words of his daughter. Judges 11, verse 36. And she said to him, My father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do as you have promised, since the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. She knew what his vow meant. She understood that she was the one who had come out to meet him. And she did not argue. She did not protest. She said, You have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do as you have promised. She acknowledged the vow. She recognized its binding nature. And then she added a reason. Since the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. God had given the victory. 20 cities. Total victory. The Lord had avenged them. And now the vow had to be fulfilled. She understood this. Do as you have promised. But then she made one request. Judges 11, verse 37. So she said to her father, Let this thing be done for me. Leave me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down on the mountains and weep for my virginity, I and my companions. 2 months. She was not asking to escape. She was asking for time. Time to go to the mountains with her companions. Time to weep for her virginity. In ancient Israel, this meant she would never marry. She would never have children. No descendants to carry on the family name. And Jephthah had no other children. His family line would end with her. She was weeping for what would never be. And she asked to do this with her companions, her friends, the young women who would have been with her at her wedding. Now they would go with her to the mountains to grieve. Judges 11, verse 38. He said, Go. And he sent her away for 2 months. And she departed, she and her companions, and wept for her virginity on the mountains. He granted her request. He let her go. For 2 months she was in the mountains. And then, verse 39. At the end of 2 months, she returned to her father. She returned. She did not run away. At the end of 2 months, she came back. And the next words are direct and final. Who did with her according to his vow that he had made? Jephthah fulfilled his vow. The vow was a burnt offering, and the vow was fulfilled. And then the text adds one more detail. She had never known a man. She died as a virgin. She never married. She never had children. The family line of Jephthah ended. The story does not end with her death. Judges 11, verse 40 records what happened after. And it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went year by year to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in the year. A custom, an annual observance. Every year the young women of Israel would go out for 4 days to remember her, to lament her. The Hebrew word translated lament means to recount, to rehearse, to tell the story. They were not just mourning. They were remembering. They were making sure her story was not forgotten. 4 days every year. And it was the daughters of Israel who did this. The young women, those who would have been her companions, those who understood what she had lost. They went out year by year. It became part of the rhythm of life in Israel. And the text says it became a custom. This was established practice. It continued. They went to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite, not to lament Jephthah, not to celebrate his victory, to lament his daughter. The unnamed woman who had paid the price of her father's vow. And this practice continued in Israel. This is unusual in Scripture. There are other tragic deaths recorded in the book of Judges. Samson died pulling down the temple. Abimelech was killed by a woman who dropped a millstone on his head. But none of these deaths resulted in an annual memorial. Only the daughter of Jephthah received this honor. Only her story was rehearsed year after year by the daughters of Israel, and she remains unnamed. We know about the annual memorial. We know it lasted 4 days. We know the daughters of Israel participated, but we do not know her name. This creates a paradox. She was remembered every year, but her name was forgotten. The text records the memorial, but not the name. Jephthah himself continued to lead Israel. Judges 12 records that he judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in his city in Gilead. 6 years as judge. The text does not say he was a bad judge. It simply states he judged Israel for 6 years, and then he died. There is no record of God's judgment on him. No prophet came to rebuke him. No punishment is recorded. The text presents the facts and lets them stand. But the story of his daughter was not forgotten. Long after Jephthah died, the daughters of Israel still went out for 4 days every year, still told her story. The annual memorial outlasted the man who made the vow. It outlasted his leadership. It became part of Israel's collective memory. And Scripture preserved this detail. We have reached the end of the account in Judges. We have seen what Scripture records. A man rejected by his brothers who became a leader. A vow made before battle. A daughter who came out dancing. A 2-month mourning in the mountains. A vow fulfilled. An annual memorial. These are the facts. But there is more to examine. Not what the text says, but what it does not say. And sometimes what Scripture chooses not to say is as important as what it does say. The text never condemns Jephthah. This is striking. The book of Judges is not silent when judges fail. When Gideon made an ephod and all Israel prostituted themselves to it, the text records this as evil. When Samson repeatedly violated his Nazirite vow, the text shows the consequences. When Abimelech murdered his 70 brothers to seize power, the text calls it wickedness. But with Jephthah, there is no such statement. No prophet appears to rebuke him. The text records what he did and then moves on. This silence has caused debate for thousands of years. Some have argued that Jephthah did not literally sacrifice his daughter. They point to the fact that burnt offerings were for animals, not humans. They suggest he dedicated her to perpetual service at the tabernacle, which would explain why she remained a virgin. They note that the law of Moses provided a way to redeem vows involving people through payment of silver, as outlined in Leviticus 27. Others have argued that he did exactly what the text appears to say. He offered her as a burnt offering. They point to the plain reading of his vow. Whatever comes out of my house shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. They note that she went to the mountains to weep for her virginity, not for her life. They observe that the text says he did with her, according to his vow, using the same language used throughout Scripture for sacrifice. The text does not settle this debate. It gives us the words of the vow. It shows us the daughter's response. It records that the vow was fulfilled. But it does not describe the method of fulfillment. This ambiguity has existed from the beginning. Ancient Jewish interpreters were divided. Early Christian fathers were divided. Modern scholars remain divided. The text permits both readings. What we can say with certainty is that Jephthah made a rash vow. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 2 warns, "Do not be rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Therefore let your words be few." Jephthah was not careful with his words. He made a vow without thinking through what it might cost. Whether his daughter died or spent her life in service at the tabernacle, she paid the price for his rashness. She lost her future. She lost the possibility of marriage and children. The family line ended. And yet the Spirit of the Lord had come upon Jephthah. This happened before he made the vow. Judges 11 verse 29 states it clearly. Then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah. This was before the vow, before the battle. The Spirit empowered him for leadership and for victory. The vow came after this. The vow was Jephthah's decision, not God's command. God did not require the vow. God had already empowered Jephthah. The victory would have come without the vow. But Jephthah made the vow anyway. Scripture leaves much unspoken. Her name, her conversations in the mountains, the exact method of fulfillment, and Jephthah's motivation for making the vow. The text records facts and trusts readers to wrestle with their meaning. Centuries later, Jephthah is mentioned again. In Hebrews 11, the chapter often called the Hall of Faith, verse 32 lists him among the faithful. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets. He is listed alongside Gideon and Samson and David. Men who had faith despite their flaws. Men who trusted God even when they made mistakes. Men who were used by God even though they were imperfect. This tells us something important. Faith and foolishness can coexist. A person can trust God for victory and still make rash decisions. A person can be empowered by the Spirit and still act without wisdom. A person can be used by God and still cause pain to those around them. Jephthah defeated the Ammonites. He led Israel for 6 years, and his daughter paid a price she should never have had to pay. All of these things are true at the same time. The story of Jephthah and his daughter is not comfortable. It does not end with clear resolution. It does not give us simple answers. It presents facts and lets us wrestle with them. A vow was made. A daughter died or was dedicated for life. A memorial continued for generations. And Scripture preserved this story without explaining everything. Sometimes that is how Scripture works. It tells us what happened. It trusts us to think carefully about what it means. And it reminds us that even in the stories of faith, human beings make choices that have consequences. Choices that affect not just themselves, but others. Choices that cannot be undone. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoy living and inspiring biblical stories, subscribe to Living Bible Stories channel so you don't miss new videos. We'd appreciate your like and comment. It really helps the channel grow.